Okay, good afternoon. For those of you who are tuned in at the moment, thank you very much for joining. I'm going to give it a couple of extra minutes for those who are running late. Okay, once again, for those of you who are here, thank you very much for joining. Apologies for those of you who was wishing or hoping to attend in person. Unfortunately, the event became oversubscribed, and although you can't see it now, I'm in a relatively small office, and so therefore we couldn't fit as many as we would have hoped into the office, in which case we decided to stream live. So I will tell you this now, that this is the first time I've ever streamed a live event. It's going across multiple platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and some others. I'm not overly familiar with the software. It's been sprung upon me very last minute, so I'll apologize now for it maybe coming across slightly unprofessional with respect to the way in which the slideshow presentation is, how it comes across. So today is the open day for the Vanquish 21-day close protection training program. Just going to give you an outline of what we are going to be expecting today. So firstly, we're going to give you some background about myself, of course, some in-depth background about the organization. The Security Academy, which is one of our training wings that isn't necessarily part of the 21-day program, but it does run close protection training courses. The courses that are available to you through that platform, in addition to you hearing from a course candidate. Now, of course, because the way in which this event has been altered, so has the way in which the candidate is going to be presented. What was the plan? So the plan was to have them obviously in person, and then the attendees who were also going to be in person could have asked the candidate or the past candidate some questions. Unfortunately, what we've had to do is revert to a live recording, which was recorded very last minute by one of the candidates who just passed his course in September. So you'll hear from him in a little while. In addition to all of that, there'll be a Q&A opportunity for myself. This is the part where I'm probably going to trip up a little bit here because I'm not overly familiar with the software. I'll do my best to look at what's going on Instagram in addition to YouTube. I'm not sure I'll have an opportunity to on Facebook. So the point is, if you do have any questions, my suggestion would be either leave it on YouTube, which I'm going to be looking at on this laptop, or Instagram, which is on that device over there. And I will do my best to get those questions addressed. So I'm going to quickly go through this section, least of all because it sounds very arrogant, but also because slightly irrelevant, I think, in addition to being in the interest of time. I think we'll just skip through it. I won't give you a brief career overview of myself. I will explain to my current role at Vanquish. So my official title, if you will, is the Chief Operations Officer, and my job is massively varied. I retired from teaching in the UK approximately 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I had to take on that role again in September, owing to the director resigning in May or June, I think. And there was a course scheduled, so I did come out of retirement and train another course in September in Manchester, which is where we are now. My role, it also involves the opening of new offices, the procurement of equipment for TS International, and overseeing all legal matters, in addition to a myriad of other things. With respect to the courses, I'm not going to tell you too much about that right now, other than to say that I did write the 21-day close protection course. It took me approximately 1 year to write the close protection element. All of the other elements that come into form the bodyguard training program obviously took a lot longer, and it's been developed over a period now of about 10 years or so. So that's that. Publications, I am responsible for 2 publications, one of which is called The Real Guide to Surveillance, which is, as it says there, genuine insights to the art of covert foot and mobile surveillance. And this book, which is far more popular, is called Technical Surveillance Countermeasures. It's not actually called bug sweeping at the top. That's just to grab people's attention. But it's, technically it's called Technical Surveillance Countermeasures, a straightforward guide to bug sweeping. So that's that. Vanquish is now a global brand. We have offices in 6 countries spanning 5 continents, a total of 11 offices. We are just, well, it's 10 at the moment. We're just in the process of opening another. You don't see all of the offices labeled there because one is in Manchester, one is in London, for example, and we have another in Canada. So that's the organization, that's the scope of it. It has many different roles. Our 3 key pillars are security, investigations, and education. You may have seen this graphic on the website, train with us to work for us. So I'll just go through them briefly and explain in a bit more detail. Vanquish Security Services, which is one of the first companies, is a bespoke security company providing close protection operatives to ultra-high net worth families and celebrities. The investigation firm is a specialist intelligence acquisition firm focusing on fraud investigations, for which purpose operatives are deployed globally. Just a quick sort of deeper delve in that, because it's a little bit ambiguous, I think, that statement. And just to say that we deal with clients who, as it says in the security section, ultra high net worth. A lot of them have been defrauded. Our role in that context is to identify who might be responsible. There's a lot of intelligence acquisition process that goes on in the office. But when it comes to the requirement of having to procure information out of the ground, it is a responsibility of surveillance operatives, for which we teach our operatives in the UK to do and deploy them in various locations around the world. TSCM International is by far the biggest company that we own. It's a bug sweeping company serving private, corporate, and public sector clients with offices in 6 countries in the 5 continents that I mentioned. The offices that you saw in the previous slide, that one, it's TSCM International that's responsible for this. Of course, it's our plan for the other organizations to expand as well. But the point is, what's relevant about all of this in the UK specifically is that all of our companies, all of those companies there, they only recruit from Vanquish Training Academy. Now, I just want to be clear on this from the outset. And if your interest ceases at this point, then so be it. But in the interest of being transparent, open, and honest, I have to tell you that we do not guarantee that you will get a job at the end of the training course. That is to say that at the end of the program, it's not a case of you going from the training course straight into a full-time opportunity with a close protection client. Yes, that can happen. It can happen, and sometimes it does happen. The course that just run in September, 2 of them were given the opportunity to work for a full-time CP client based on their geographical location. A lot of the guys, though, what they tend to do is work for all of these companies, for which they tend to earn more money as subcontractors. So just to go back to the top, we only recruit people from these training courses. Yes, absolutely true. We only recruit people who are self-employed. So that process is taken care of throughout the training course itself. Advice is given whether the course candidates prefer or not prefer to be self-employed is their choice. They may consult an accountant, for example, to decide whether or not that's the best thing for them. But we can't take them on unless they are self-employed. So when they become self-employed and they acquire what's called a unique tax reference number, again, this is a very straightforward process. All of this help will be given on the course. Once they get that number, they are then put onto several systems. And these several in the sense of the various companies that you can see on the screen now, they all have their own respective systems with respect to providing work opportunities. And that is something I'm going to delve into slightly more deeper in about 10 to 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this video play. If you've seen it, I apologize. If you don't want to watch it, you've got probably somewhere between 7 to 8 minutes. I can't remember the time that this video takes to run. Please take the time to watch it. It gives you a good comprehensive background as to what the Vanquish Group does.
As a brand, Vanquish is known for providing prestigious services to its international client base, but is also slightly complex, from investigations to bug sweeping and owning what is considered to be one of the most exclusive bodyguard courses in the private sector anywhere in the world. Things can appear slightly confusing. I will therefore take you through the history of the individual companies and how everything came about for what is now commonly known as the Vanquish Group. In 2011, the first Vanquish company was incorporated. Vanquish Security and Investigation Consultants Limited was initially set up to provide security services to high net worth individuals and celebrities. Because the security industry is very competitive, it was decided from the outset that Vanquish should also offer a unique selling point that was our investigative services that would investigate any threats that a security client had received. After realizing that security services alone were not providing enough income to support the company, mainly due to the after effects of the global financial crisis, we decided to open our investigative doors to the public, which is when we purchased the privateinvestigators.co.uk. We then started to provide general private investigation services, including corporate and matrimonial investigations. Upon receiving requests for surveillance operations across the UK, we quickly discovered that our operatives simply didn't have the training or experience required or necessary to carry out these tasks successfully to any respectable standard. It was for that reason that we decided to train our existing security operatives in surveillance. It was at this point when we started to write what was intended to be a 3-day basic surveillance training course. In an effort to make it convenient for existing operatives to attend the course, it was originally planned to be held over the weekend, starting on the Friday and finishing on a Sunday. However, after testing the first course on a small number of candidates, it became apparent that the course would only be 2 days as opposed to 3. Surveillance courses to this day begin on a Saturday. Shortly after opening our investigation services to the public, it became apparent that this was going to provide a lucrative income, which is why we wanted to purchase the privateinvestigators.com, which was felt that would give us more of an international presence. And in April 2012, Vanquish entered into the bidding war with a number of companies in America for this domain name, which we won. In June 2012, the first ever surveillance training course took place in London. After inviting a vast number of existing security operatives to attend we received a number of requests from security operatives who did currently work for Vanquish to attend the course. However, it was stated that the course was only for our own operatives and made no logical sense for us to allow others to attend for free. But it was argued that these individuals would be willing to pay to attend. This was the beginning of Vanquish Training Academy being open to the public. By October 2013, the 5-day advanced surveillance course had finished being written and was held for the first time in London. In January 2014, we opened our second UK office in Manchester City Centre. After receiving dozens of requests from both corporate and private clients, we decided to add technical surveillance countermeasures, or bug sweeping, to our list of services. Because of this, we also had to produce a brand new training course, which was written by us. After acquiring new clients from across the pond, we decided to open an office in the United States, and in August 2014, Vanquish Security and Investigation Consultants LLC was incorporated in the store. In 2015, the first batch of US-based Vanquish staff were trained in New York City. Back in the UK, it was decided that the investigation business should become an entity in its own, and in June 2015, Vanquish Investigation Services Limited was founded. In December 2015, Vanquish became an approved training center, allowing us to deliver security courses approved by the Security Industry Authority. The key aim here was to deliver our very own close protection bodyguard course. 1 month later, we announced the launch of the Vanquish Close Protection course, which became the world's first and only application-only civilian bodyguard program. Essentially, this meant that opposed to simply booking onto a course, you had to go through an application process where we would hand select between 4 to 6 people to attend each course. In May 2016, Vanquish became a registered trademark. This meaning that we now own the rights to the word and no use it in relation to security, education, or investigative services without our consent. Shortly after, Vanquish Security announced the final interviews. This was to implement a policy whereby we would no longer recruit one who has not successfully passed one of our own training courses. We made this policy for the investigation side of the business back in 2012, 2012, but it was now going to apply to our services as well. In September 2018, the Security Academy was launched, providing security-related training courses to other international students. A great deal happened other than expanding our client list until January 2019, when it was announced that our founder was going to launch a new book based on the existing bug sweeping course. In March 2019, Technical Surveillance Countermeasures was officially published on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a multitude of other retail outlets. As a result of the book launch, Vanquish received press requests from across the globe relating to the course, and in October 2019, the first ever civilian bug sweeping course in Australia was delivered by Vanquish Training Academy. The same achievement happened again in Ghana, which was quite possibly the first of its kind in West Africa. Owing to the international success of the book and training program, Vanquish created a brand called TSCM International. This was to be a company solely dedicated to the provision of bug sweeping. In January 2020, TSCM International became operational in Sydney, serving clients across Wales. In May 2020, Vanquish and investigation consultants became Vanquish Security Services, giving a clear-cut difference between our security branch and our investigation company. From here, our global started to take off. In August 2020, TSCM International became a registered trademark. In September 2020, TSCM International was federally incorporated in Canada as TSCM International Limited. In October 2020, TSCM International is incorporated in the UAE as TSCM International LLC. August 2021 saw the opening of TSCM International's Singapore office. This was shortly followed by another new office in Nigeria, our first in the continent of Africa. TSCM International continues to expand into various regions, but at the time of making the presentation, companies under the Vanquish Group umbrella now have offices in more than 6 countries, spanning 5 continents, giving us a unique ability to deploy our operatives at short notice and serve our clients across the globe. Our priority remains to provide bespoke to those who require it, securing private, corporate, and public sector environments, investigating fraud and security-related threats, in addition to educating our own operatives to carry out those tasks to fulfill requirements to the highest possible standard.
All right, so those of you who've seen it, I apologize for having to go through it again. Right, so in the UK, the basic structure is as follows. The Vanquish Group, which is the parent company, of course, Vanquish Security Services, the investigation company, and the training company. Globally, it looks slightly different because we have different businesses, including TSCM International, which is also present here. The Security Academy is the other training organization, and the Vanquish Foundation is the charity which we founded to provide training to homeless veterans in the hope of getting them off the streets and back into work. So I'm not going to play this video because and it's probably one that you've already seen as well. So I'm just going to touch on the 21-day program and what it's made up of. As you can see, there are 4 key elements to it. Going back, sorry. A 5-day advanced surveillance training program, which was one of the first that was ever written. 3-day medical. It says medical because as it stands, it's first aid. Now, first aid is a funny topic because it's contentious within the training sector, within the security industry. And the reason for that is because it has different layers to it. Essentially, the minimum viable program is 3-day first aid at work. Now, the argument is that it's simply not enough for close protection operatives. The counter argument is that that varies and based on the geographical location of where the operative plans to work. For example, if they plan to work in a corporate environment as a close protection officer, CEOs, for example, in a first world country like this one, then having to know or understand the nuances of remote medical care isn't all that together necessary. On the same hand, I do agree that first aid at work is probably not enough and there should be slightly more. But I also would suggest that as part of someone's continuous professional development, which is a big part of close protection and any training program actually, that medical training is something that could be sought after the course. And so therefore, the minimum first aid at work is probably enough to get you through to a point where you should then consider CPD and progressing that qualification further. The 3-day technical surveillance countermeasures course, it was 2 days, it's now become 3. If you intend to work for TSM International, of course, there's more training that goes on after that. So once you've done the training course, you are actually required to come in and do what we call retraining. It should be called upskilling, but for some reason we've just labeled it as retraining. And annually, there is a retraining package that takes place for all of our bug sweeping operatives. So that's all combined into the 21-day course. The qualifications that come about as a result of the course are as follows. Obviously, close protection, advanced covert surveillance, which is a different certificate. You'll also acquire a certificate for technical surveillance countermeasures. I'm going to come back to the firearms part in a moment. Counter and anti-surveillance is something else that we go into quite some depth. First aid at work, pediatric first aid, and defibrillator training. Defibrillator training never used to be part of first aid, hence why it's listed on its own. We do pediatric first aid training because a lot of our clients are families, and if they have children, then of course it's beneficial. It's beneficial to have that qualification. Right, to firearms drills. Here's the contentious point with respect to why it's on our course. Now, for years and years, if you go back, if you dig deep enough on YouTube and blog posts and everything else, you'll see why I've argued time and time again that we shouldn't have firearms training on a course in the UK. And the reason for it is as follows. Firstly, this course is based around our client base. It's not based around generic close protection. It's very much based around celebrity protection and that of ultra high net worth individuals as well. In the UK, it's illegal to carry a firearm. There are exceptions, of course, for emergency services and armed forces, but in the private sector, there are no exceptions, contrary to popular belief. If you decide to do a course like our one and then deploy it in a hostile environment, yes, you will need to prove that you are able to handle a firearm. Of course you will, because you're in a hostile environment. But if most of those companies that recruit, in fact, to my knowledge, all of them, they require specifically military experience. Now, if you're ex-military, you will of course have had extensive firearms experience, and therefore doing a couple of days training on a course like this, in my view, is a waste of time. The reason it's now there, however, is because our director, Matthew, quite rightly, I think, pointed out that we needed to attract a certain type of clientele. We were missing out based on this criterion. People wanted to do firearms training despite our arguments. And so what we decided to do is carry out basic firearms drills as part of a close protection team. Now, even if you are ex-military, it's unlikely that you've done such drills. So the idea now is that we use dummy firearms in a close protection setting, and we carry out certain drills, for example, contact left, and the team will have to withdraw their sidearm and take the necessary action. Again, it's been reviewed on the last course. Everyone did enjoy it, and so we are going to keep it in place for the time being. But I have to tell you, instinctively, it's not something I agree with. But we do it. And it's not live firearms training. My other argument to this point, actually, just so you know, is that it takes away from quality learning hours. If you've never handled a firearm before, it's unlikely that you're going to handle one as a professional close protection officer. And so therefore, it's borderline pointless you doing it other than for the enjoyment factor. But the key thing is, it's taking your time away from quality learning hours, which can be applied to a much more proficient use, in my view. So just to give you an idea of the structure and just to show you why the hours are so very long on the course. As you can see, we do the 2-day, which leads into the 5-day advanced training surveillance course, sorry. So the 2-day basic and the 3-day advanced culminates a 5-day advanced training program in surveillance. In addition to that, we then move on to 3-day medical training, which at this point is first aid at work. It might move on to something like FPOS, which we're not sure of yet. The 18-day minimum close protection it includes, surveillance and things like that as well. So you're probably wondering how we're able to do all of these things, because if you calculate all of these days put together, then you'll see that it's not viable to squeeze it all into 21 days. However, close protection does include technical surveillance countermeasures. It does include surveillance counter and anti-surveillance as well. So that's how it all combines into a 21-day structure. However, the key thing to note is that the days are long. It is not 9 to 5. There is no CP role that I know of in the world that exists where it's 9 to 5. Yes, every day we tend to start at 9:30. Finish time does vary, and it can vary from 1800 to 2200. So you could be finishing at 10, 11 o'clock at night. It just varies. The PI, which you can see there, interestingly, used to stand for private investigation. We used to have a private investigator course, but it was withdrawn by the awarding body because the licensing legislation sort of fell through, as it were. And there is still no licensing legislation with respect to private investigations. But PI now is applicable to physical intervention, which is something that's been introduced by the SIA for the purpose of close protection training. Prior to May 2022, it wasn't a requirement, and therefore we never used to do it. But now, of course, we do as per the requirements. In addition to all of that, towards the end of the program, we include counter and anti-surveillance as well, in what turns out, or what makes up a very interesting practical assignment. This is a bit of a random one here, but I've left it in there just to highlight something. With respect, this obviously is an application-only course. You can't book onto it. You have to go through an interview process first. Why? Simply because our companies only recruit from this training program. We want to make sure we have the best possible candidates. It's a waste of time for this training academy to have people come on board who don't meet the required aptitude levels, and therefore either don't end up working for our companies or go and work for other companies. For us, it's just a waste of time. The sole purpose of the existence of this academy is to provide operatives to our other companies. That said, if an application is successful, then there are only 2 options. On your screen, you can see 4. The 2 options that remain is the amount in full and a £500 deposit. The payment plans, A and B, no longer exist. We do not accept or allow people to pay their course off monthly. It's something that I removed since being thrown into the role of the director of the training academy once again, and it's something I'm sticking with. The reason for it is because something like 80 to 90% of people who are on payment plans have failed to maintain payments, and the administrative costs are just too expensive. It's probably worth noting at this point is that our training academy doesn't make money. It does make some profit, but it's very, very minimal. Again, the purpose of it is to provide operatives to the other companies within our group. So just going back though to the £500 deposit. So if your application is successful, you are going to be required to pay a minimum deposit of £500, but you will have to have paid all of it prior to the course commencing. And that can be on the first day of the course. So just to reiterate, yes, you can pay a deposit of £500, which is the minimum deposit, and the rest can be paid, but it has to be paid on the morning of the start date of the course. Alternatively, and what most people tend to do is just pay the amount in full. That, of course, varies subject to your circumstances. I just want to touch upon the Security Academy. From my research into people who are watching this live, is that, and this again, just to reiterate, it's going across multiple platforms. I can see there's only a couple on Instagram, but it's on YouTube, Facebook, and there's another platform that it's on that I've never heard of before. So again, to reiterate, the Security Academy is one of our other training providers. It basically allows people to attend courses with no intention of working for Vanquish. So there is a close protection course on there. I think it's the minimum, which is 18 days. It's far cheaper than the Vanquish course. There's no application process. You can just pay to attend. And the dates are going to be released, I think, tomorrow. The dates for the Vanquish course are being released today, which I will mention in a moment. So you'll see the website's different. It's a completely different organization. In fact, this is an old screenshot and the prices have changed massively. So if you want to view that, it's thesecurity.academy. Once again, get back up. Thesecurity.academy is the web address, www.thesecurity.academy. That's not something I have much to do with. Right, going back, just a couple of points about the Vanquish course. Yes, I mentioned the hours, and of course it is very, very difficult. It is massively intensive. You'll hear from a course candidate who was a very credible individual in a moment, and he will tell you in that video that it was pretty challenging. But I want to make you aware of how it is that we help our candidates get through the program. So a few bullet points here is dyslexia. If you have dyslexia, if it's something that you suffer from, do not by any means allow that to put you off attending any course actually, but specifically our courses, because we are very conscious of those with dyslexia, and the way in which we teach caters for it. On the first day of the course, you are asked a series of questions and you are given an opportunity to discreetly bring it to the assessor's or the instructor's attention. And if you are dyslexic, we take extensive measures so as to ensure that your learning is not impacted in any way. So that's that. Dyslexia is not something you should be concerned about. I have dyslexia, but it's not traditional dyslexia. I have something called dyscalculia, which is the numerical form of dyslexia. So I'm numerically dyslexic. Do not let it put you off. We will support you throughout the duration of the program. VARC, we assess people's learning preferences through something called VARC. It stands for visual, audio, kinesthetic, and reading. The other way around, sorry, reading and kinesthetic. And that allows us to identify what the person's learning preference is, thereby ensuring that we deliver our content in the most viable way for that candidate and all other candidates on the course as well. Bear in mind, we only accept between 4 and 6 people on each course, which means that there's a very small group of people who has very close contact with the instructor throughout the program, or the instructors, because there are more than one. And one of the benefits of that is that you get not quite undivided attention, but you do get a lot of one-to-one contact throughout that time. We ensure throughout our application process that we tend to get very good candidates. So usually high aptitude, and that means, typically speaking, we get people who are going to be able to work as a team, support other candidates on the course, and generally just be of good ability as well. Teamwork is something that's encouraged, of course, within the security industry and throughout the duration of that 21 days. Teamwork is observed and it's assessed by the tutor throughout the duration. I keep saying throughout the duration, I've got to stop saying that. But teamwork is very, very important, and therefore you should, in theory, receive the support of not only the instructors, the company, but also fellow candidates. Right, now what we're going to do, as I said at the beginning of this course, for those of you who tuned in slightly later, of course, this is not face-to-face, which is what the intention originally was. We were going to have a candidate here. That candidate would have been stood there, give his or her experience, and then the people who attended the open day would have had the opportunity to ask them some questions directly without my input. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the way in which we are delivering this, due to an oversubscription on the tickets, as it were, we've had to do this instead. So Nick is someone who attended the course in September. He was one of my candidates in the sense that I actually delivered that course, and he has been kind enough to very quickly, at very last minute notice, record a video, which has now been implemented on this slideshow. So I'm just going to play this now and give you an opportunity to listen in.
I'm a former Royal Marines Commando. I was a candidate. My name is Nick Tomlinson. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando. I was a candidate on the Vanquish Academy course 2022 in September in Manchester. Now, a little bit on my first meetings with Vanquish were via phone call, where I was successful in my application to join the September course. From the offset, Vanquish showed professionalism and interest in me personally to obviously join the course. And right from day one, I was warmly welcomed into the instructional classroom. Even though we moved at a fast pace and the timescales were quite tight with regard to content and course content, I should say, at no point did the instruction dip or fall below anywhere that it should be. I found it to be second to none. Again, very professional, and even outside instruction that was brought in, such as first aid, conflict management, and physical intervention. The instruction again was top notch. I thoroughly recommend the Vanquish Close Protection Operative course, even with the actual add-on bolt-on elements such as the technical counter surveillance measures course and bug sweeping, which allows candidates to go and work for TSEM International if you are successful on passing the examination during the course, which obviously gives you that extra ability within the industry. Again, I cannot recommend Vanquish Academy highly enough for their abilities and professionalism. Good luck in your application and good luck on the course.
All right, so Nick, if you're watching, thank you very much for doing that. I do appreciate it. Just to be clear, Nick was not paid for that at all. Of course he wasn't. So if you want to view other course testimonials, traditionally at the end of every training course, or at least most of them, we ask the candidates to record a video. They aren't paid for it in any way. It's completely separate from their work with Vanquish. It's just at the end of the course, what they thought of it and give a genuine insight. You can see those testimonials on YouTube. If you download the brochure, all of them are linked into that brochure and you can view them there. So just a quick couple of points to round off before I do my best to look at YouTube and check emails for any other questions. I will cover the last part of this slideshow presentation, which is to talk about taking on work, employment and recruitment policies and things like that. Firstly, the recruitment policy of all of the companies now in the UK are to only recruit from this training course. Traditionally speaking, it was the investigation company that first implemented that policy because of issues with surveillance operatives, as mentioned in that video earlier on. The security company took on that policy, I think it was in September 2016. And TSEM International absolutely unequivocally took it on as soon as it was incorporated. And that's always been the case. So no Vanquish company will recruit outside of this training program in the United Kingdom. There is a break clause in that, however, which is in extreme circumstances. If we cannot find one of our own operatives, we can break that policy and recruit externally. However, that's happened once in the last 5 years, and we don't intend to do it again. The one time it was, I will explain what that was actually. We have a member of a royal family that we work with quite frequently as a bodyguard client, and when he or she comes over, we have to provide a very specific, in fact I have to tell you, it's a female, so we have to provide female operatives. We cannot provide male operatives as a alternative, and so therefore we have to provide female operatives. Now, we didn't have enough on our books. In fact, we still don't. We are in a situation where we are absolutely desperate for female operatives. So if you are a woman who's considering attending this course, I would seriously urge you, without pushing you to do our course, enter the industry. I mean, we as an organization, we are really looking for people, and we're restricted who we can and can't recruit. So please, if you are watching this and you are considering a close protection course, we have work for you. But again, with respect to taking on work, we can't say that black and white you are guaranteed work. What we do guarantee, though, is that you will receive work opportunities from us. Now, this is where there's a bit of a bridge between you're guaranteed work, you're guaranteed to be paid £500 a day, and what some other training providers do. We cannot do that. We will not do that. What we do tend to say is, yes, again, for the 100th time, all of our companies do recruit from this training course. However, just to be clear, it's up to you whether or not you take on that work. It might be that that work is not suitable for you. It might be that you're based in Manchester and there's a job that comes up in Bristol, for example, or it comes up in Cornwall. That doesn't suit you. Of course it doesn't, it's miles away. But at the same time, you must realize that these opportunities that come about are going to be geographically challenging. And so it is in your best interest to know at this point that travel is a key core requirement for anyone considering entering into the security industry, specifically close protection, specifically investigations, additionally for technical surveillance countermeasures or bug sweeping services. Now, once we onboard our operatives, they are put into the three systems, which is security investigations and TSCM. And when a task comes in, which is frequent, they will receive a notification. It's called an incoming task notification. And that will tell them key pieces of information about that task that will allow them to decide whether or not they want to attend. So, take on that work. So if they do want to take it on, they look at the daily rate of pay, they look at the geographical location, they look at the type of task that it is, they look at the duration, the start times and all the rest of it, and they might decide, yes, that's for me, respond to the email, done. You will be put into a pool of people who have responded, and it increases your chances of acquiring more and more work the more you respond. We are absolutely crying out for operatives. This is not a sales pitch for the training academy. I know it sounds like it. We are looking for operatives in the UK for TSM International and for the security company specifically. For investigations, we have investigative work, specifically surveillance work, but it's the security company and the TSCM International franchise. No, it's not a franchise. Sorry, the brand are specifically looking for operatives, and I'm very conscious of making it sound, although I'm trying to push you into do this to promise you, in a way, promising that you'll get work. It's not that. I'm just being open and honest and saying, yes, we do have work. We need operatives. The only way we can get operatives on board is by getting them onto our training course first, which requires a interview process to take place. Now, as it stands, the dates have been released, or at least, at 1:30, the dates were released on the website. So I'm just going to do my best to disconnect this software for a second and get the dates up. Where are we? Vanquish Academy. Protection training. So you should all, let me just check you can see my screen. Yes, you can. That's good. Okay. So once the website loads, I can scroll down. For those of you watching it on Instagram, if anyone, probably not, but if you are watching it, you'll be able to see this as well. The dates should have been released, and here they are. So we have 3 dates in 2023. 2 are in Manchester, 1 is in London. The first is on the 3rd to the 23rd of June in Manchester, and the second is in London from the 1st to the 21st of July, and the third and last is the 2nd to the 22nd of September 2023. So I hope you can all see my screen. Yeah, you can. That's good. And for which case, this application process, I believe, is now open. So I'm going to go to the application page and click continue. I'm hoping, yes. So which London? There we go. So the course dates, you can now apply. If you want to apply, feel free. Let me just see if I can go to, I can't access any questions, by the way. I'm sorry, I've tried doing this, but it turns out that I've not made a great deal from this. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I can ask questions. What I'm going to do is invite you to ask questions via email. So the best email is info@vanquishacademy.com. Once again, info@vanquishacademy.com. And if you have any questions, I'm sorry that I can't answer them live, unless there are. I don't think there are any on Instagram. I'll check in a moment. But the dates, which is a key part of today, have been released. They are, as I say, Manchester the 3rd to the 23rd of June, London 1st to 21st of July, and Manchester again, the third and last training course, which is from the 2nd to the 22nd of September. Again, on these applications, we receive somewhere between 60 to 100-ish, but we only accept between 4 and 6 on each course. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email, once again, info@vanquishacademy.com, and I will do my best to answer them directly. If I can today, I will give you a call and answer them myself. If you want to apply, you can apply now. Applications have been open for the last 15 minutes now. So if you want to apply, please do that. And if you want your interview to be held today, we are going to be holding interviews today. The reason being is because for people who attended or wanted to attend in person no longer can. They're up there. One of the caveats or privileges or benefits of them attending in person was that they can apply, have their interview, and they will get a decision made there and then. And we plan to do that today as well. So just to summarize, we've given some information about myself, the organization, specifically the training company, and the companies that have opportunities for you to work for once the course has been completed. We've also released the dates, which is from the 3rd to the 23rd of June in Manchester, London, and then Manchester once again. We are now accepting applications for those training courses. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them once we've got through some of the applications today. So once again, if you want to apply, it's vanquishacademy.com, vanquishacademy.com/apply. Very straightforward. But yeah, sorry, this was all very last minute, and I apologize for the rushed nature of this. I appreciate those of you who have attended, and hopefully I will speak to you soon. Now I'll just have to figure out how to end this thing.